Moving on to a favorite of mine, Halloween 4. I love this frickin' movie. This is my favorite Myers sequel for sure. I love 2. There's some big issues I have with 2. But man, do I love this movie. I think this is one of the best slasher sequels ever. So my favorite Myers sequel. It's kind of just tied honestly with like Season of the Witch, which I also think has an incredible atmosphere and is so well paced and whatnot. So it's really hard to pick between 4 and 3 for me, and 2 is just close behind, and then the series kind of is downgraded from there. That doesn't mean that I hate 5 and 6 or anything. I don't like H2O, and I despise Resurrection, as we've already talked about. But there's a lot of good things to be had, and 5 is just, there's a lot of bad. First thing I want to do really quick before I start is I was asked by a guy who helps run a website called michaelmyers.net to describe and talk about my Halloween 4 mask that I used to have. When I was a kid, I was living in Northridge, California, and my brother, Chris, was friends with a kid named Bryce Moore. And his father was Roy Bucky Moore. And Roy had a crush on my mother, like pretty much everybody back then. And he would come over to pick up his son. And when he came over one day, he met me. He was trying to, get in with the kids so he could schmooze his way into my mom's pants, I'm sure. And so he came over and I was watching Halloween. And of course, I'm sure this stunned him since I was so young at that time. I think I was like 7. I want to say it was like 6 or 7 because this was like 88 or 89. It was right when the movie had been made or just had been made. But anyway, he saw me watching it and he was like, you like my brother Greg was there too when we were watching. He's like, you guys like this movie? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, I worked on Halloween 4. And I was like, what? I just thought he was like a god at that time. I was like, you worked on a Michael Myers movie? And so the next time he came over, he brought a mask from the film. And I just thought it was the coolest freaking thing I ever saw in my entire life. I mean, it was a Michael Myers, mask used like for the film. It was crazy. It blew my mind. And my mother was there, and he was really trying to lay on the charm. So he was like, I have a few of these. Why don't you go ahead and keep this? Oh man, what a dumb decision that was to give a mask like that to a kid like me. I'm sure he didn't really think much of it, to be completely honest, at the time. Who knows what his thought process was. But man, he must have really been into my mom. Most guys were. But yeah, he gave it to me, and unfortunately, I abused the shit out of it. I did. It's embarrassing to say now. Take it easy on me, okay? I was a kid. You don't give a kid, a fucking 7-year-old, something like that. He kind of gave it to my brother Greg, but then my brother Greg passed it down to me because I was the Myers freak. And then I just wore it everywhere. The mask was, I remember it started to chip all the paint because the mask was actually like painted. It was all like skin toned color underneath the paint. And it was like a thick paint, so like when it cracked all up and just kept peeling away, and it would just kind of take a little bit off. And it had these almost like triangular duct taped pieces that you could tuck down into the neck. And the eyes were covered over inside. You could, when you opened it up, you could see there was like just these like rectangle black mesh. It was almost like a cloth material. It was like right over the eyes, so when you put it on, no one could see through it, and your eyes were dark. But man, I wore that thing all the time, and the hair was like this almost like, not Brillo pad, but the hair was really like, that's hard to explain. It was this brown hair. Felt like it was spray painted or something. I don't think it was though. It was a very odd texture to it. And it came off in clumps as the mask continued to get older and older. And unfortunately, just over the years of using it and whatnot, it got more and more degraded, and eventually it just started to fall apart. And I tried to put it on one time, and it totally ripped the neck out. Oh my God, talking about it now makes my stomach churn. I was such a dumb kid. If I knew back then, I mean, if you gave it to me now, I would have the thing like in a hyperbaric chamber, man. It wouldn't be touched by anything. But unfortunately, the mask disintegrated, and it literally melted. Like, because I left it. God, I was such a dumb kid. But I left it in a thing, and when I came back, it was like the heat of it like melted the mask into like a clump. And I tried to pull it apart, and it just was melting in. I had to throw it away. It was so devastating to me at the time. So I'll probably get hate mail for destroying one of the masks that was in Halloween 4. But what scenes, I don't know if it was screen used. I don't know. Like, I think the ones where they tuck them into the neck supposedly are. I was being told by this guy. I knew literally nothing about it at all. I knew it was probably super rare, obviously. I mean, it was, how many masks could they have made for it? But I'd love, I mean, if anyone has contact with Roy, if he's still alive or anything, I guarantee you he still remembers Valerie Smith, 1,000,000,000% sure. So it would be funny to talk to him or have someone talk to him and be like, oh yeah, like he could confirm this story 1,000,000,000%. So I wonder where he is. I wonder if he's still alive. He probably is. He was pretty young. So he's probably like 60 or 70 now. So he's probably still alive. Anyway, let's get into the movie. I would talk too much about this mask, but I did once upon a time own a mask, which is a pretty damn cool story. And I have to bring it up on here, and that will answer these questions that I had been asked a while ago, and I've been putting it off because I wanted to do it in this review because it made the most sense to do it here in this review. So, all right, let's get into the movie itself. Now, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This has arguably my favorite opening in Halloween. And what I mean by that is, like, instead of the pumpkin and like just the close-up panning shot of the pumpkin in part 1 and 2, and then the blinking pumpkin in part 3, we get all these shots of like, autumn. They're in like a field, and there's scarecrows, and there's old farm equipment, and like a little not a windmill, whatever those things are called. I just love it. It gives such a different tone. The atmosphere and the tone of this film are incredible, and they are retained throughout the entire film. That is one huge issue I have with part 5 is the tone's all over the fucking place. You got clown cops, and I'll get into that movie. I'm not going to talk too much about it here, but this film, man, it picks this tone, and it is dark and dreary and drab and kind of drained of some colors, and I just adore this movie. I really do. And rewatching it now, it's still tense. It really, I actually found myself a little nervous during scenes, even though I've seen them so many times. I know exactly what's going to happen. I still felt myself on edge a little bit, and that's just purely, great filmmaking by Dwight Little here. So my hat's off to him for this, because I think this is better than Halloween 2, and that was kind of sanctioned and governed over by John Carpenter through Rick Rosenthal. So I don't know. I think Dwight did a much better job here. I don't want to say much better, because I do like Halloween 2, but I just like the tone of this one better. And this is the first film in this series, and honestly maybe the first film in the entire Halloween franchise, and still that's true, that well, Halloween 5 does too, I suppose, but this one really feels like it's set on Halloween. Like the other two before this just don't. They don't have a lot of, like you could have taken the Halloween subtitle off and thrown it, I didn't really need to even be on Halloween the way that they did it. This one has much more of a Halloween feel. They're actually going out and trick-or-treating. There's lots of talk about Halloween within the film. It just has a much more Halloween feel. So I like that if a film's going to be called Halloween, that we are going to, address that it is actually the holiday. And I get that the Babysitter Murders, as Carpenter and Deborah Hill had written it back then, did not have Halloween. It was kind of just injected into the film because they wanted to sell it that way. So it makes sense that this film would feel more that way. And okay, so we move into the hospital where Michael Myers is being treated, and we have this security officer exposition scene where he's describing, the events of the first two films, and I really like his character. As I said, everyone really plays their part well, and it fits the tone of the film. This guy is he is a downer, man, being around this guy. He works in a place, I totally understand why he is the way he is, but he's just walking him down there, and he's so serious, and he is not a great person to be around in that situation. It's just like, dude, I get it, this place sucks. But it's the way he talks about everything. I'm just like, no, Jesus ain't got nothing to do with this place. And I don't know. I really like that guy. I just wanted to give him a real quick, nod here. I also love the scene, and I'm gonna say I love this scene a lot. But when the paramedic chick or whatever she is comes and she like takes his pulse, and then she's like, "All right, let's move him," and then boom, that freaking iconic Michael Myers Halloween theme comes blaring on, and they're bringing him out in the rain, and it's awesome. I love that transition. Just, let's move him. Boom, music just blares, and they just bring him like Michael is being taken back out into the world. He's been in this lockdown facility, and as soon as they're like, let's move him, he has that opportunity to be back out in the world, and it's like the nightmare has started again. So I love how that all plays to life. Now, I'm gonna, of course, like always, I'm gonna pose a whole bunch of questions that I have that this movie raises. So after Michael kills the paramedics and he sticks the thumb through that dude's head, right before that, we have them saying like Jamie is alive, like he has a niece in Haddonfield, back in his hometown, and Michael clutches his fist, and he had no prior knowledge to this. So this is what brought him back to life. Like this, he's been in a comatose state. I mean, he was in the first film from 6 to 21. He was sitting in a room, staring at a wall, looking beyond the, whatever. And he then broke out because I don't know why. I mean, that could be argued for a while, but in this one, he finds out Jamie Lloyd exists and immediately jumps up, kills people, and runs off. So if they didn't say that, would he have tried to escape? Was that what woke him up? Is that what brought him out of his slumber? Like, because Jamie Lee Curtis or Laurie Strode, the character, died 11 months previously. So it's not like her death put him in the comatose state. She had been alive for 9 years up until almost a year before the events of this film, and Michael is still in a coma, so she was able to live 9 more years. Jamie Lloyd in this movie is only like 8, I want to say she's in this movie. So Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode, had her like a year after the events of Halloween. So yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know if that is what it's implying. So he just needed to know that, like, he heard Lori died, and I would guess this is the first mention that he gets. Like, he's not celebratory at all about that. He's more like, ah, shit, she had a kid, now I gotta go kill her. So that's the first one. The second one is then after he kills those paramedics. Jamie is at the window and she's looking out and she sees an ambulance. Nothing is ever to suggest that she falls asleep in that scene and then goes into this dreamlike state. Now, it could be argued that when she goes to lay her head down to pray, she falls asleep, and that's when she starts the dream. So when she's talking to Rachel, she could be awake, or she was asleep the entire time. So a lot of questions are raised there, though, because if she sees the ambulance out front and she is actually awake, why then is Michael crashed the ambulance 4 hours away? Because when Loomis finds the ambulance, he says, I'm going to Haddonfield. It's a 4-hour drive from here. So why did Michael bring the ambulance to her house and then drive it 4 hours up the road, then to crash it into an embankment? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But if she's asleep and she has a dream, and this whole scene is a dream, she sees an ambulance, which is the exact ambulance he was in, and then she sees him in his full gear, which he's in the mechanic's outfit and the mask, and which is the exact one he is in later. She then she foreshadowed the future of what was to come. Like, she could see the ambulance, which then credits a little bit of this connection that they share, either at the end, which we'll talk about that and how it could or could not be that, but definitely in part 5. And I don't know if this movie had any desires or plans to do what happens in 5 with, like, the thorn tattoo and the connection to Jamie and him, like, telepathically. But this is the first kind of proof that they already might have had a connection. But he just learned of her. Did she just have one with him from the get-go that he wasn't aware of? So I don't know. Like, that scene's very odd to me, because do I think he drove that ambulance all the way there and then drove it 4 hours out? No, I do not. How did she see that ambulance? The only thing that makes sense is that she was asleep and that she dreamt all of that. But if she did, she had to have some kind of connection in order to see all those things the way that they were. Of course, I'm overthinking this, but fuck it. Like, why wouldn't I? This is what the fun of it is. So that's a couple ones right there. We'll obviously get into many more as this goes on. It's going to be a long one. I always say these are going to be long. We'll see if we're going to beat freaking Halloween 3 here. If that was 40 minutes, Jesus Christ, I hope not. Anyway, Michael comes up later in the movie and he goes up into Jamie's bedroom and he digs through her little shoebox and he finds a picture of himself, which he does not like. He immediately flips it over. But he also finds another picture, and it is of, Laurie Strode, and it is taken clearly on the day within Halloween when Laurie is waiting for Annie to come pick her up. So that picture is not possible, okay? That couldn't have happened. So unless some asshole ran by and took a snap in between her wait for Annie, which is possible, I suppose, but that didn't happen. So that picture is absolutely impossible. So I don't know why they couldn't have found something else. Doesn't really matter. Another thing that they did in this film I forgot to mention was when Loomis is going and he's talking to that doctor who's like, I moved him, whatever, screw off. He's writing on his little typewriter there, and it says first, middle, and last name, and it's Michael M. Myers. Michael Myers' middle name is Audrey. Like, we've known that for a while. So what's up with the mess up here? I don't know what's up with that. Like, I feel like that was something simple, but who knows? They had Michael age 23 in freaking 2 movies when he was outright said to be 21 and mathematically 21 from the 15 years in at 6. So and the fact that it was from 1963 to 1978, like everything added up to that he was 21. In these other films, he's, you know, in the credits he's 23. So they make little mistakes like this all the time, and us are just like, what? Come on, we know his middle name. That ain't it. Loomis has like the most small scar, and it just keeps changing throughout the movie, and in the next one it's smaller, and then the next one, at least in the producer's cut of Halloween 6, they do tell us that he had spent a ton of money and had plastic surgery and had all of the burns removed from his face. So at least they kind of addressed that there. But in this one, his scars are all over. Like the first one, it's like this knob in the middle, and it's like all hollow around it. And then later, it's just kind of like a blemish. They had like a completely different little prosthetic there every different damn take. It's pretty ridiculous. All right. So then, one shot I love in this movie is when Loomis comes to that, fueling station, and he goes in and he sees everyone's dead, and then he turns around and they do that like zoom hallway kitchen shot of Michael. I don't know what it is about that shot. It is one of my very favorite shots in this movie and in this franchise. I think it's just eerie and so well done, and I just love the way Michael looks. Somehow he kills a mechanic by stabbing him through the head. He had to have, because there was no markings on his thing. But there's also no blood, so how he stabbed him in the head with something and it didn't bleed on it at all. It's dark, okay? Maybe it wouldn't show, but I noticed that and I was like, So he had to have stabbed him through the head. Although when we see his body later, he is not stabbed through the head when he's hanging from the... I don't know why Michael would take the time to chain the guy up. That just... These movies always do that. And I'm like, why would he take the time? He's trying to get to Haddonfield. He's got no time for this shit. But he goes out and blows the whole place up and he drives off. And then Loomis runs out and these kids are like, yeah, come on, old man, get in. And then they just drive off like dicks. And then Jackson Sayre pulls up behind him and he jumps in and they have this conversation. And something that is so subtle in this movie, and I, for some reason, have always been such a fan of it, is when Sayre offers him a drink and Loomis looks at it and he's just like, like he's so like, I don't know, it almost like suggests he has like a little bit of a drinking, or he just needs a drink more than anything. I like his reaction to that. And we also, when Jackson starts singing, you know, Take Me to the River or whatever, the beautiful, beautiful. This is really the rare time that we get to see Dr. Loomis kind of relax for a moment and smile. It also shows us that this is how Loomis is perceived and almost how he sees himself at this point. Like, oh my God, I'm like this guy. He's that crazy drifter who just talks rhetoric and propaganda at anyone who will listen. Like, Loomis has become that weirdo. And I like that they kind of get teamed up and you get to see what basically where Loomis is heading. Like and maybe where he's already at. So I really enjoyed that scene. It doesn't really serve any purpose to the film except for, you know, how Loomis got from point A to point B. But I don't just throw it away because I do like Jackson Sayre's performance here. Another thing here that I didn't even know about until pretty recently, and I would like to talk about it for a minute because I feel like it should have definitely been a thing, and they set it up to be a thing and it wasn't. And that is that Rachel Carruthers' friend that picks Jamie up from school after these dickhead kids. Dickhead. What the fuck? Who picks on a kid for their mother dying? Your mummy's a mummy? You're like, how could your mother's dead? Oh my God, I know kids are horrible, but really? Wow. Like, I get the freaking, like, your uncle's the boogeyman. That's still screwed up, but your mother's dead? Like, wow, that's a low blow. But anyway, she runs out, and for some reason she wants to impress these fuck faces and wants to go buy a Halloween costume so that she'll fit in with them. I don't know why. I guess that's bullying mentality. But she jumps in the Dodge Dart Swinger, which is the very car my brother Greg had, which is like kind of ironic. I don't know, maybe if he got that because he was such a Halloween fan like me. But he jumps in that car, and Rachel's friend is Lindsay. And her character's name is Lindsay. And she was originally intended to be Lindsay Wallace from the first movie. And then the kid that's in the drugstore with Brady and Wade is supposed to be Tommy Lee Wallace, not the director of Halloween 3. Freaking Tommy Doyle. There you go. Which, of course, that character is then reprised by Paul Rudd in part 6. But I really feel like this was a little bit of a missed opportunity. And I also think that if they didn't capitalize on it here, they should have in part 5. Although maybe they felt like that would just be too convenient or whatever. But come on, look at 5. It's so fucking stupid. In so many places, did they really have to sit there and be like, oh, we shouldn't use her? Because Tina should have been Lindsay. And, you know, Tommy Doyle could have came back and it could have been her boyfriend or a friend of hers. And it was such a good opportunity. They still lived in the town. It was only 10 years later. They would have been traumatized about it. They would have wanted to protect her. They would have had, you know, firsthand experience and whatnot. So when I see that scene, I still think of that. Now, since I've known that, I believe that is Lindsay Wallace. And when I saw that scene, I was like, that is little Lindsay Wallace. And that guy at the store is Tommy Doyle. Now, something I never noticed until this viewing, and it might be the Blu-ray cleanup, I'm not sure, and I might be wrong on this, but if anyone else has noticed this, later in the movie, a little bit later in the movie, when Loomis is pointing his gun with, Ben Meeker, Sheriff Meeker, they're pointing it at a bunch of different Michael Myers masked guys who end up not being Michael. They're pranking. But one of the guys who pulls off the mask looks very similar. It's split second. I even paused it to try to get a better look. But it looks a hell of a lot like Tommy Doyle. The Tommy Doyle in the drugstore with Brady. And fucking Wade. Fuck off, Wade. Now, is it? And if it is, that's not funny. Like, I mean, I guess he has the most right to do it. But, like, this is the one dude in town that should understand why that's not funny in the slightest. So when I saw that, I was like, really? That's interesting if that is him. So if anybody else has seen that, please let me know. I'm trying to get a clean shot of it. I don't have the Scream Factory Blu-ray. I wonder if it's the same transfer as this one or if it's even cleaner and maybe we could get a better shot of him. It's not exactly super important or anything, but I still wanted to push it. Brady, let's talk about Brady here for a second. I am a big fan of Dazed and Confused, and I love him in that, and I love him in this, even though his character is kind of a shithead, but he's a kid, he's a young kid, he's a dumbass. Him and Rachel don't even really have anything yet, because she says in the beginning, like, he wants to make a commitment to me. Like, that's what you want an oinker for a daughter? Like, she's really trying to push to, like, get this to be her boyfriend. So they're not technically together yet. And she blows him off, and he's had it. Like, I don't know what their past. I'm not defending the guy. He's a dumb kid, and he sees this hot blonde, Kelly Meeker, and she wants to rail his ass. And he's like, you know what, man? Rachel is getting way too serious for me anyways. Like, I want to go have some fun. I get it. But of course, us as the audience, we only see like one little bit of it, and we're like, what a dick. And while I can't agree he's a dick, let's cut him some slack. He's like a 17-year-old boy. But yeah, I love him in Dazed and Confused. Do you spit or swallow? I would definitely marry you. So where are we? When Jamie goes to the drugstore and looks for her costumes, I love that she finds the costume and wears the costume that Michael wears when he is the killer, when he's the kid killer, when he's the kid in part 1. I think that's great. I think that's fucking great, honestly. I really like that they did that. So that outfit wouldn't be very memorable to the town all that much. I don't think. But the Michael Myers mask. How many people saw that in town? I don't know. So I don't know if that mask is synonymous with him in this town or not. Because in reality, pretty much everybody who saw Michael Myers besides Dr. Loomis and Laurie Strode and maybe Marion Crane, maybe. I don't know if she saw him or not. Is that her name in it? Because that's the name from Psycho, right? And I'm pretty sure she was named after, and that was her full name in that, right? She dies in H2O. Spoiler alert, you know. But yeah, like, would that mask be connected to Myers? And if so, like, how are they selling it in this town? But all those other kids have all these masks. So if they have those masks, then that means they have to know that Michael used them. Why would they all then buy that mask to pretend to be Michael on that night? So I think that kind of answers that question there. And if that's true, how is this town selling a Michael Myers mask? There's no way. It would be like Nazi paraphernalia. It would be completely banned from the town. There's no way it would be sold at the local frickin' drugstore. No way. So that's pretty silly. And the fact that Michael walks in and just happens to see it and goes for the same one, like, oh, my old friend. It looks, the mask, I know a lot of people hate this mask, which is funny because on the cover, that is clearly the mask from part 1. And that isn't like some Photoshop kind of math thing. That is the mask right there. This very image here is on the original 1988 poster. So they sold it as the original Halloween mask. And when this movie came on, it does not look like that. I don't hate this mask. I don't love this mask, but I don't hate it like some people do. So I'm kind of in the middle about it. The only time I just outright don't like this mask, and until recently, until I got more into the horror community and started talking to people online, I thought I was the only one. I used to show my friends this all the time, but the mask with like the blonde hair when he's in the school and he throws Loomis through the door, I was always like, what the hell? And I had a VHS copy back in the day, so the quality wasn't as good. Now it's clear as day on a Blu-ray. But back in the VHS days when I had it, I even had this on Betamax back in the in the 80s. I think I did, but it doesn't matter. We had a lot of movies on Beta. I think this is one of them. But yeah, I would always rewind those scenes and be like, is it that great? And it was like, yeah, it is. Why is this great? And it's just obviously some kind of reshoot or whatever. But God, it looks so bad. It looks like Michael was really stressed out about trying to kill his little niece and aged considerably. Although with that new Halloween mask that they've displayed, he's got like wrinkles in his mask because it's old, you know, kind of going for that Rob Zombie. The mask is been hidden away and he goes to find it or something, or he's just took it off with him because this movie ignores all the events of the other ones supposedly. So he just, I don't know, he got away that night and then stayed away for 40 years. So yeah, the masks are all over the damn place. And the mask looks nothing like the one in this movie and the next one, even though it's supposed to be the same mask. So stupid. You would think with the budgets and the love for these films that they could get a guy to recreate the mask identically, but I guess it's just different directors' visions, right? That make the difference. All right, let's speed it up a little bit here. Oh, poor Sunday. I didn't even mention her. Michael's always killing dogs. Max and freaking Lester and all this. We get a little Bucky cameo here for Roy Bucky Moore, the dude that works at the electrical plant, has Bucky written across his helmet. Clearly a nod to Roy. And oh man, you want to talk about like the ultimate tit tease of all time, Kelly Meeker. Like every guy, every boy, everybody who's ever watched this movie that's into chicks or even just can appreciate the female body is just so like feels so cheated in that moment where he like takes off her top and then she's like pulling it down and she has these huge boobs and you're just like, all right, man, this is like the 4th movie in a horror franchise. Like, we're definitely getting boobage. And they like puts his head in front of him, and then, oh my God, and he's like, I think I'm in heaven. And I'm like, I think I'm in hell. What the hell, man? Although, I will say, I'm a personality first kind of guy. I know people probably just laughed out loud when I said that. It's true, though. I actually prefer Rachel. She's more my kind of lady. But Kelly's definitely attractive. But come on, really, Kelly? Like, you know, this is what you do best. Rachel said so. Show it. And man, Michael lays waste to this police station. He comes through there just like a madman and just like chopping limbs off. We didn't get to see that because it probably would have looked ridiculous. I wonder if they even discussed that. Like, should we show him taking down the police station, or will there's no way to film this without making it look ridiculous? I'm guessing it's probably going to look something similar to Halloween 6, the theatrical cut, when he's cutting down all of the doctors when Tommy and you know, Chick are watching through the glass, and they see him like hacking everyone up, except for these are just doctors. This is a police station with guns and shotguns. Although in the last bit of this movie, he gets blown away by like 100 shots and lives through that. So I guess he's not even phased. He's not even a man in this anymore. Like in the first 2, he's a man. In this one, even though Loomis is claiming he's not really a man in the first 2, he is. But in this one, he is just the devil. I mean, he's a fucking possessed demon or something. He cannot be stopped. I prefer my killers to be human. It takes me out of it when they're supernatural or something, because I'm such a logical person. My brain isn't scared by things that can't happen. Technically, anything could happen, but I'm just not scared by anything that couldn't happen. And someone who can't die is impossible, so it takes me out of it. The hillbillies come to help, and Loomis calls them in as you haven't got a police force. That was a pretty good Loomis. No, you probably don't think so, but I thought so. But he tells them, you know, like, Michael Myers is back in town, and then they're like, you know, how many people do we lost? How many kids? Whatever. And they're like, Al lost a kid. Al lost a son back then. Who's Al? Because we find out in this, I looked it up on Google to see. Al, fuck, now I can't remember the last name I saw, but it's no recognizable name. So who is Al's son? It had to have been from Halloween 1 or 2. So one of the guys that dies, Bob? Or Buddy? Or like, who could it have been? Who's Al's son? I'm really curious on that one. I wonder, I've read pretty much every comic and whatnot, so I don't know if it's ever addressed on who Al's son is. Does anybody have any guesses? I don't know. Like, we don't really get to see Al all that much, so I can't really tell how old he is to see, like, how old would his son have to then be. Anyway. But he died that night 10 years ago. And I like that when they go to board up the house, Myers is already in the house. He's screwed. And then he takes a shotgun, and you think he's going to turn it and use it. And you're like, Michael's going to blow someone away? Holy shit. And he just takes the gun, he rams it through Kelly. Would a gun go through her? I mean, with the strength he has, I guess so. But I don't know. If you hit someone with a gun hard enough, there's no way it would go through their body. It would have to be shot out of a cannon for that to happen. And even then, man, it'd be a hard press to get it through the body. There's no sharp edges to it. It's completely freaking blunt. Doesn't matter, but it is a cool shot. I like that. Yeah, he won't use it. Like, he just takes the gun and just takes it from Brady as well, and just takes it, just throws it off the stairs. He's like, I don't got time. Like, I'm way more powerful than that shit. This gun is wimpy shit. I'm hitting 40 minutes. Oh no, I thought I was gonna be able to beat it, but no. That story killed me, and this rambling. And Loomis and Meeker take off together, like, not together, but like one after the other. Really? Like, you left them behind, like your daughter and the people, the only person you think he's actually coming for, you're going to leave behind. That is just convenient plot bullshit there. Like, because they couldn't have Meeker be there, because it would just be like this big fight, and Michael's not going to come around with him there. He's already in the house, but he's waiting until he leaves. But them leaving is pretty stupid. I'm gonna go over to the Carruthers house. Like, that's where she'll be. No, you stay there with them, dummy. And then, Meekers runs off. Oh, they killed frickin', this guy out in the frickin' Ted Hollister. There you go. I've seen the movie enough. I should know all these damn names. And so he runs off. Dumb. Them being trapped in the house and like Brady shooting it. Damn, it's metal. What does that mean? We're trapped in this house. Like, that is terrifying. Like, they boarded up this house to be safe, and they ain't safe, and that's just scary. And when they go up and they're in the attic and they break out and they get on the roof, that whole scene is so tense. And then she rolls off in this 3-story house and she falls down, and then Jamie's like on that cord and she comes down, she uses the lattice to climb to the bottom, and she has like the most endearing little kid moment where she goes to Rachel and she's like, "Come alive, Rachel, come alive." For some reason, I don't know why, that scene has always made it feel like she's such a child, and it really makes me feel for her. For the rest of the movie, I get it, she's a kid and I should see that, but that moment really stamps in like she is a kid, she's a little child. And then she runs off, and for some reason, like, it's the first time I think I've watched this since my kids were born, maybe. Maybe not, but this is the first time it really hit me like that. But I just started thinking of my daughter running away and some psychopath chasing after him, and I got like really angry. I was like, I kick Michael's fucking ass. I don't care how tough he is. I'll break his fucking head off. And then, Brady fights him, and he like grabs his neck, and Brady just, for some reason, spits. I never understood. He's like, I spit on your feet, Michael. That's my last stand here. And then, they go over the school break and they get the blonde mask. Rachel comes in, sprays him with a fire extinguisher. For some reason, that knocks him backwards. He could take gunfire all day, but fire extinguisher, woo, he found his kryptonite. They jump in the car. Michael makes his best Cape Fear impersonation, Robert De Niro's Cape Fear, where he hooks himself under the truck somehow, and they drive off. And somehow he fights an entire gang of hillbillies in the back of a truck without anyone in the front or anyone in front of the guys he's fighting seeming to notice, even though that truck would be rumbling around. That's so dumb. As much as I love this movie, there's a lot of dumb little things like that. And then he comes and he grabs the dude's neck and just tears it open. That is an awesome practical effect. That is gory as shit and great. And Rachel just throws his fat ass. Somehow she just has that much leverage and knocks his ass out of the car, opens the door, throws him out, and throws it into gear and starts driving. And Michael gives her all that time, even though he's still on top of the roof, and she almost comes to a stop. And then she throws the body. And this is the moment where Jamie then goes over and touches his hand. And is this then where the curse is passed on? It says so in part 5, but if we're only considering part 4 here, then Jamie goes, she grabs the scissors, and she kills her stepmother or her adopted mother, whatever. We find out in the 5th one, I think, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty damn sure about this, is she didn't die. She was attacked by her, but she didn't die. But at the end of this, we very much believe that she was dead. But what do we think here? Was this intended to be PTSD, and she saw what her uncle did, and this is what set her off? Was touching her transferring the curse or whatever to her, and then she went up and she used it? And Loomis, I loved Loomis's reaction. Like, his cry is so genuine. He is broken, like, not again, not again. And his initial reaction is, kill the bitch. I will not let anyone put their... I should have killed Michael when he was a kid. I'm doing it right this time. I'm killing her. I can't have this happen again. It would be, my fault. Like, Brackett blamed him back in the day, and he kind of took it as his fault. He even has a really good moment with Jamie in part 6 in the producer's cut, where he comes in and he feels responsible for what happened to her because he just felt like he should have been more there for her. But yeah, it's so interesting to watch that scene and be like, is that what happened? Did they pass it on? Or what? So do you feel like they originally intended for it to be a curse passed over, or did she like lose it, and because of her bloodline, her lineage, did she have some kind of predisposition, genetic predisposition to be a killer, and this night is all that had to set it off? Is it like skip a generation, and then go to the daughter of Jamie, like she missed out on it, and then she had a kid, and then she was like susceptible to this, and then Michael did this to her, and she was like losing it, and like, all right, fuck it, like, because she already, no, I'm not gonna theorize too much here, I was gonna go into way too much, but we're already way past time here. I love how Michael's getting shot and there's no bullet wounds, holes, anything happening here. He's just like, ugh. That was so stupid. Really, you could like put little packs in him to blow up on his, oh Jesus Christ, so silly. But yeah, anyway, all right, we have talked way too long. So if you're still here, Jesus, I always say that, but 46 minutes, how can you still be here? Who wants to listen to me talk this long? All right, guys.